She wouldn't have left if you had just rung your bells when she
Yeah,
said
all
to
you had
her.
to do was ring your bells, and you
You
were.
got yeah, you got plenty of bells. You got bells everywhere.
And it even had the uh, uh, the oh vodio do,
Oh
oh
yeah,
vodio do, oh vodio do, da da boom,
the Rudy
da,
Valley. It's good. The
and
Rudy
the Rudy
Valley
Valley.
turnaround. Give me the
You know,
turnaround with the Rudy Valley thing. Yeah.
we're talking. We should have started it. We should have turned you guys on before we started this conversation. But we were talking about the 1966, I believe, hit by the new vaudeville band called Winchester Cathedral, which is
So it's a period piece brought to new life. A modern song of unrequited love being blamed on a place of worship.
yes, there's a lot of that going around.
Now, there, when you analyze it, it's really it's worthy of death to the prophet. That's what he's saying.
Yes, it was, and Mikey had come across it on, I guess, YouTube or some device that we get our music from.
It was on Spotify. It came shuffling through, and
Oh,
I
it was.
went, one, why did I save that? And two, it's crazy that became a hit, especially the line that Vinnie sang the other while. Sing it to him about ringing the bells.
Oh, now everyone knows just how much I needed that gal.
Bam, bam, bam,
She
bam.
wouldn't have gone far away if only you had started ringing your bells.
I love that line. It sounds normal, and then all of a sudden you get to the end, and he's blaming everything on the cathedral itself for not ringing the bells in time. And I wonder what would have happened if the cathedral had gone along with the game and just started ringing her bells. What would have happened to that love affair? We would have never written the song.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't leave just because the bells weren't ringing. I mean, she
I
left
think there was something.
obviously because this guy was a schmuck. He dressed funny. He talked like this. And, you couldn't take him out anywhere. You couldn't. Where were you going to take him?
He wouldn't stop singing wherever you took him. He turned it into a song.
Winchester Cathedral. No, 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 no. You're breaking me down.
The interesting thing about that hit is it was another one of those one-man creations. There was no new vaudeville band. There wasn't a bass player who quit the band and joined Noel Redding in his new effort. There wasn't any of that. It was one guy somehow, as they used to call it, a bed sit record, where you sit on the edge of your bed and sing into your computer and get yourself a hit.
It was, it's interesting, Michael, because if you go and you look at the clip that is on YouTube, one of the clips that are on YouTube, they have, and I think they're doing the Sullivan Show or something like that. They have a full complement of people on stage, not just one guy.
Yeah.
The guy who just goes on by himself, which is another great song, kind of in that genre
Uh-huh.
of, I guess you'd call them retro, right?
Right.
It's pre-rock and roll. It's not even now rock. It's pre-rock and roll. It's 30s and 40s crooner kind of stuff.
It's sort of Rudy Valley with the hits of the 20s and 30s with a Brighton twist.
Right. Remember Hurricane Smith?
Yes, I do. I do
Who was
indeed.
who was a great producer, but Hurricane wanted to have a hit on his own,
He had a couple.
and so he said his biggest one was "Oh Babe, What Would You Say?" And again, a song that just took it back to you could sit there and be watching a 30s movie and hear this song come on.
Yeah.
It would fit right in. Oh, where are you, sweet lollipop? Here am I with such a lot to say. Hey, hey. And he traveled because I saw him on the Carson show. And he came on the Carson show and he had a saxophonist with him. Because, the bridge in the song is the
Right.
saxophone piece. So he's, so the saxophonist steps up and then he steps back and Hurricane comes back. I think Hurricane is still going. I think he's still alive.
I hope so. That guy in Pittsburgh will have him on his show as one hit wonders.
Yeah. He was a great. He doesn't do those shows anymore. I guess most of the guys that he was doing,
Are gone.
um, are probably have passed on. They're too old. But what a great. I was lucky enough to go to the last show, the last set of shows. They film them over 3 nights.
What
They
theater?
do Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I went. I got to Pittsburgh in 2010, and I believe that was the last one. As a matter of fact, I know. I believe that's the year I went because they did it over 3 nights, and they were amazing shows, and they were such a great chronicle of that 50s and 60s, and they even brought it up a little bit into the 70s. They had ones later, I think, or maybe that T.J. Lubinsky is the guy's name.
Yeah.
And they brought some of the great acts. And I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they got these guys to sound so good. I don't know if it was auto-tune. I don't know if
Well, some of them really still have it. The ones that can't sing don't do the shows, and the ones that are ill or gone are not there to compare it
yeah.
to. But these
And
guys still have their chops.
I'll tell you what, man. There were several great acts that got the and you know what they did well too is they stuck completely to the original charts. They went the Paul Schaefer route.
Right.
Stick to the way it was recorded.
Right.
Don't get fancy. Don't try to do anything that wasn't there on the record.
Hey, just doing what was on the record is a challenge to any band.
Right.
You need a group of real players to recreate the funky original tracks that were the bedrock, the rhythm section to those hits. They're extraordinary.
Right. And they had a guy that worked with him, with Lubinsky, called Henry DeLuca. And there's another guy, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately. I apologize. But he was the saxophonist who wore his hat like I wear my hats backwards.
Right.
My Kangol. And he was the arranger for all of this stuff. And I'm telling you, man, they didn't miss a beat. They had their show that I saw live. They had a couple of different groups come out and sing backup.
Yeah.
The greatest, maybe the greatest performance that I've seen on that show, and I've seen them all, is Eddie Holman.
Eddie Holman.
Eddie Holman. Remember Eddie Holman?
Yes, I do.
Hey There, Lonely Girl. He came out and he did Hey There, Lonely Girl.
Like he was 16.
Like he did it in 1969. And I mean, he had the place standing and crying. I mean, you can see tears coming down women's eyes, guys' eyes, man. I was bawling because he just he did that. Hey, I mean, I can't do it. I used to be able to do it, but he just hit that hey, and it was perfect in pitch and on, and it was he wasn't using auto. There wasn't anything except Eddie.
Yeah, he knew how to play the room.
He knew how to play that room, man. And there's a part of that song at the end. It gets lopped off most of the time for the signal.
Yeah,
in the single, but he goes back to the verse, and then comes up. Don't you know this lonely boy wants? And he stops.
Yeah, of course.
And the room just goes, and he hits. You it just blows the place away. And I was lucky enough to see that, and I was lucky enough to see, and I've been going to these shows since I was a kid. I mean, I used to go to the Richard Nader shows, the Gus Gossard shows at the Academy of Music before it was the Palladium in Madison Square Garden. I was at the Rick Nelson show that he wrote Garden Party about.
Really? How did he play that night? I mean, Rick always had a good band.
Yeah, the Stone Canyon Band.
Yeah.
And they came out and played, but they played a couple of the old ones, but they played them in kind of a more 60s, I mean,
Yeah.
it was what, 68, 69, 70, something like that.
Well, Ricky had a long career, but he always had a great voice, and he
Yeah.
always had good bands, and he always had funky hit records.
Yeah. I mean, he probably sold, well, I don't know if he sold, but he was as popular as Elvis at one point. When Elvis went into the army, Ricky was the guy then, because Elvis wasn't really making a lot of records.
And Ricky did it Hollywood style, Imperial Records, small independent company. He was with them for a long time. All his hits as a kid were done on Imperial. And they got the guy who turned out to be Elvis's lead guitar player, James Burton, to be his guitarist right from the beginning. They were kids together. And they also recreated the sound of the Jordanaires, the backup group behind Elvis.
Right.
And they did it beautifully. You'd think they were the Jordanaires, but they're not. There's some talented cats from Hollywood from the jingle scene, and they put together. Listen just to the rhythm sections of Ricky's hits, and they're all really well done.
Yeah. And, who else was one of his guitarists? Toured with him, I know, for a long time. Was what the hell is the guy's name? He was the lead singer for Spiral Staircase, who had the hit More Today Than Yesterday.
Yeah. I know who you mean.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It'll come to me. But he was his guitar. He toured on the road with him for years and years and years. They toured together. So
Randy Meisner of the Eagles played with Ricky in that band for a while.
Yeah.
Anytime you need a singing bass man, Randy Meisner was one to call.
It's amazing when you go back in that early 60s, kind of after really the basis of everything moved from New York to California, and how it just became such a, I don't know, everybody was on everybody's record. It was like that in New York, but they didn't get credit for it. In California, for some reason, people started to get more credit for it. There were more, and I think part of it probably was just that, organized crime wasn't running things, or at least openly.
Well, there was a mystique about the lunatics were running the asylum in L.A., and that was appealing. The adults were in charge in New York. That was a fact.
Yeah.
Whether you were with Columbia Records or you were working out of the Brill Building. But the smaller labels that were taking chances were the rhythm and blues labels.
Yeah.
Because they had to take chances to get hits.
Yeah. And also those guys, let's face it, the guys that were in Philly and in Memphis and East LA,
they got on the charts.
They got on the charts, and they also I'm trying to think of there's another one I'm listening. I'm trying to think of. Well, it wasn't Florida. Maybe it was like an Atlanta sound more. Maybe Alabama, I don't know if it was Muscle Shoals exactly.
No, that was a little early for that.
Yeah, but there was a.
But all those Muscle Shoals musicians were in their high school bands at that time.
Yeah, but there was still black artists down there that were getting together and putting out local hits.
Well, James Brown was on Federal originally, and that was out of Cincinnati, and he was certainly not a Cincinnati guy.
Right.
That was a marriage of convenience.
And he was out of South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. He ended up, I think, working out of Atlanta was his headquarters, but I'm not convinced of that. Maybe I'm wrong.
So, but a lot of those guys, I mean, they never got, all they wanted was the $15 a session.
Yeah.
That's what they didn't care if they got their name on the record. Later, they did. The ones that were still around, the ones who hadn't killed themselves, either drugs or various. There was the other guy. There's another guy I'm thinking of that was in that. Oh, Billy Stewart. Remember Billy Stewart, the fat man?
Yep.
Great voice. Sitting in the park. He he was out of that southern scene, out of that Atlanta, Georgia kind of thing that was going on there, and unfortunately, and was killed in a car accident.
Yeah.
Driving to a gig with 4 other guys in the car. And, but these, again, $15 a session players. Come on the road, jump in a car. We got 10 dates, make $150, which at that time
Pays the rent.
Pays the rent, man. Pays the rent, keeps you in dope.
And remember, as Freewheelin' Frank said, dope will get you through times of no money better than money will get you through times of no dope.
Very true, unfortunately. Very true.
I have to mention something that happened in the sports world yesterday.
Yes,
and
Michael. What
it wasn't the Giants, though I'm interested in if they're ever going to win another game, and then they turn around and hit home runs and do it. It has to do with these guys, the Warriors, who had a Game 7 in Sacramento last night and had no choice but to win it. And Stephen Curry did something that has never been done before. He scored 50 points. He took the team there by himself. Yeah. He had little or no support from his surrounding people, except they gave him the ball. They were smart enough to do that. They were unable, however, to do much in the way of scoring. And he single-handedly, on foreign court and hostile territory, went to the heights of the sports world in terms of what he does. And to say that is the entrance to the next set of playoffs between the Warriors and the Lakers. Now that's going to be a game. I don't know what it's going to be like, but if this is the entree, get ready for a real shootout. Now, our friend Kent Zimmerman, what happened here? Rats, I lost it. He makes the case on Facebook today. I was going to read it to you that performance last night by Stephen Curry and his career of playoff victories and championships puts him in Bay Area terms alone a greater athlete under pressure than Joe Montana, Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, Kenny Stabler, all the greats. And all their efforts and all their achievements don't have the rings, don't have the single-handed accomplishments and the extraordinary results that Stephen Curry has. And we keep thinking that last year he was in his prime. Well, no, maybe 2 years ago he was in his prime. And he turns around when under what I call hostile conditions, because the Sacramento Kings are so good, playing on the road against them is no picnic. And when you have very or limited support from your own team, except for Kevon Looney, Looney's my man, because what does Looney get? He gets the one thing that I tell you a winning team always gets: rebounds. They get the ball.
Right. And the Kings forgot how to rebound after the second quarter.
Yeah.
The first half of the game, they were rebounding and they were scoring in the paint a little bit.
They were still hot from the city,
and they were. But in the third quarter, it looked like they said, "All right, we surrender." And because I watched that game, my young nephew was at the not inside. It's so funny. Never clicked me to try to get him tickets to get in. But he went to the party outside. And Sacramento obviously was going wild over this because it's,
of course,
the first time in years that Sacramento has had anything to really jump up and down about. And but I agree with you. I mean, you have to put them up there with everybody else, right? I mean. I mean, how would you not put Stephen Curry up there with those great performers? And even, I mean, I don't know. Montana was such a special case.
Of course.
it's hard for me to see. You know, you really get into an area where it's hard. And I know this is the greatest. If we were on KJR this morning, where they don't take phone calls anymore, we
They
would be
don't.
taking phone calls about this because it truly is the great barroom argument. You know, who is the greatest athlete? You know, who is the one? And it almost always is going to be shaded by what sport you like the best, how many times you saw somebody, if you
Yeah.
saw them in person. You know, there's so many factors into it. It's hard to say that Stephen Curry is better than Joe Montana. It's hard to say that Joe Montana is better than Willie Mays. It's one of those, and it's actually the greatest argument of all. You know why?
There's no end to it.
There's no answer. There's really no answer. I mean, you can't sit down. Maybe you can do number of championships. Maybe you can do, I'm sure that there's some stat guy who's, can come up with a program that'll tell you under pressure situations, better throw the ball, hit the ball, and he's sitting in a little bedroom in Spolpaki somewhere trying to figure all of this out.
A lot of the best comparisons are being made from Spolpakia.
Many. Well, that's their product.
Sports comparisons.
Sports comparisons is one of their major products.
Well,
except that they do it in things like pickleball and kind of stuff like that. So,
is canasta a contact sport in Spolpakia?
Series.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Siri, my computer. All of a sudden, Siri turns on. Siri, quit. Stop. Heal. Stop it.
Siri, kill.
Cease.
To be navigating anywhere right now.
Just go away, Siri.
Just say, get directions to wherever.
Yeah, how do I go to 1482 Zimbabwe Street in Kuala Lumpur?
There you go.
Yeah, all right.
Question she wasn't going to answer. She wasn't going to answer it anyway.
Go.
Well, sometimes you can use the Tom Brady quotient, which is how many rings does he have? He's got them all. He's got more than anybody. Okay, well, that puts him in a special place. You can't compare Joe Montana to Tom Brady because Tom Brady went there more often. That's just there's a comparison to be made under pressure within the hot zone. In the second half, you can make those comparisons with the numbers that you have, but you have to give it to Brady before you even begin the argument because he's got the rings. And that's one of the arguments that Stephen Curry has on his side. He's got the rings. And not only that, but the core unit all have the same rings. It's a fascinating cast of characters that you learn to rely upon, like the Yankees with Yogi Berra and Mickey Mantle, and all the stars were there at one time. It seemed like
right.
All the stars came out, and they were there for enough years together that you saw them every October. Well, there's something to be said about the Warriors because they really weren't picked this time. Denver was the hot card, still may be. Memphis was supposed to be tough, and they were very tough, but they couldn't last against the Lakers. The Kings were a wild card, who knows choice, and they were very, very tough. But now the same guys have gotten us back here again, although you have to give Curry the edge because of the 50 points under extraordinary conditions. It's fascinating. It's fascinating because I don't believe the Lakers have a prayer in hell. They can win some games, but they can't win this series.
Well, he's a cool customer, Curry. I mean, he has that. He doesn't buckle under pressure. He doesn't. You can hand him the ball in any situation, and he doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, he just doesn't. He doesn't care. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't care about scoring. I'm saying he doesn't care. The pressure doesn't faze him.
And no matter who's defending him, he doesn't care about that either.
He doesn't care who's on him. You could drape him with three guys, and he doesn't care. You can bring whatever you want to bring to to Stephen Curry, and he will do it. I mean, and I'm sure that there are a ton of everybody wants to make that comparison now, and you start to hear whispers of it. And I'm sure that Zimmerman was kind of going there in some way. That when do we start saying? It's like, when do you start saying, is LeBron better than Michael Jordan? Well, that conversation's been around for a long time.
It's
I don't think.
and that's harder to answer, I think, in
Yeah,
my opinion, only because they don't match up very well. They're both great players, extraordinary careers,
but
but
different players.
different. They don't match easily.
And
In fact, I haven't heard a lot of people had Kobe compared to a lot of different people. Of course,
right. Well, now you stay away from Kobe. Nobody's going to compare Kobe to anybody because, not now. 10 years
sadly,
from
yeah,
now,
yeah.
10 years from now, people will compare. Will come out and say Kobe. And not to disrespect the dead, but there are still a lot of people. And I remember this when he died. There was a backlash about Kobe because of the rape charge, which was
Yeah.
never proven, but
It tarnished his early career in terms of judgment.
yeah, where you didn't really have that with Michael, except that the commissioner at the time, David Stern, told him, go play baseball for a couple of years till we get your gambling stuff straightened out. And it really wasn't even, who knows if it was even him. But the one thing I always remember, the stories I heard about Michael Jordan were always that this is a guy who wanted to beat you at anything.
Yes.
This is a guy that wanted, if you were playing cards, if you were driving down the street and there was one parking space, he wanted to beat you to the parking space. Everything in his life was a competition.
If you saw the ESPN documentary on the Bills championships, it was a several parter. You saw that in his eyes. He was a predator. He came to win, and in every aspect.
Right. There was no. I don't know that I get that vibe off of Stephen Curry off the court.
No, I think actually he's got an interesting professional celebrity side to his personality that works in the Subway commercials and so no doubt in other commercials as well on the way, because he's got girls, and remember he was into girls' shoes.
Yep.
He's developing them for girl athletes, female athletes, and that was a big hit. That was a big hit. All the little girls who love the NBA and play basketball were on his team immediately.
But you can't take anything away from what he does on the court.
No.
So
just try.
yeah. So is he the greatest player ever in Bay Area sports history? I guess that was the point that Zimmerman, Kent, right, was making, and there's an argument there.
The numbers don't lie.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument there.
And there's pros all over the NBA this morning looking at that game and saying, I'll be damned, they're going to do it again. Now you got to watch out for the Warriors. They're ready to do it again.
The thing that I always liked about having the access that we had to players and being able to go to a practice and talk to players is you could ask a Patrick Ewing, who was the toughest guy you ever faced? Who was the guy who gave you the most trouble? Not just what we seen from the stands, but you could actually talk to these guys and ask them, or even in an interview on the phone. You can ask them, who was the toughest? Who was who did you have the most trouble? You're a great player, Patrick, but who gave you the fits?
And it's always somebody we might not have guessed.
Yeah. It was always, I mean, how many baseball pitchers have you talked to? Great pitchers, Hall of Fame pitchers. And you've asked them, who was the guy who gave me the most trouble? And it's like,
Smokey.
Roy McMillan.
Smokey Burgess.
Smokey Burgess. Some guy wearing, number 58. So, man, I couldn't get it past that guy for nothing. It was Steve Carlton had one guy that used to beat the crap out of him. I can't remember who it is now. But there was one guy on the Mets. Maybe it was Art Shamsky or somebody of that caliber. But there was one guy on the Mets. He had a batting average against Carlton of like 490 or something. I think Carlton would walk him half the time just to.
I was lucky in seeing two of these athletes on our list of Great Bay Area athletes in person. That was Montana. I saw a lot of Joe Montana at Candlestick, and Willie Mays. I saw Willie Mays first at Seals Stadium, and then many years at Candlestick, and then had to watch him come back in a Mets uniform, which
I loved. I didn't know you then, but I was thinking about you.
Well, I was thinking about the Mets too in a very unhappy way. But the greatest thing Willie Mays ever did was warm up. If you were there early for the game and got to see Willie Mays play catch in front of the Giants dugout, you were watching a champion. All he did was throw the ball to that guy and catch it when he threw it to him. And he did those simple things with such extraordinary precision and beauty that you could just see that there was something special about him. All he was doing was playing catch, and it was the greatest baseball act of all time. It was like being in a three-ring circus just to watch him do the simple actions on the field. And crazy stuff. Just so crazy. You were watching a different kind of human being.
Michael, you bring up such a great point. And it's something that kids don't, or people, not just kids, people don't get today. Is they go to the ballpark and there's the phony first pitch and this. But when we used to go to the ballpark when we were kids, we'd get there early and you'd sneak down front, and the players would come out, they'd tap, throw the ball, play catch. Guy would go out with a fungo bat a little bit out in the outfield. You could watch him hit the ball out into the players.
Sun. Put it up in the sun.
Into the sun. And you learned from that.
Yeah.
If you were smart, if you were into the game, you learned by those things.
Yes.
You watched how they threw the ball. You developed the style because most players had a different style. Some threw it like this, to the side. Some threw it overhand. Some threw it from the bottom. Different guys had different styles of throwing the ball, and they experimented and they did things. They threw the ball different ways, caught the ball different ways. If you looked out in the outfield and, the coach, usually the hitting coach was hitting, balls out there with a fungo bat.
Yeah.
I mean, does anybody even use a fungo bat anymore except in spring training?
Well, I haven't been to an early game for a while to see infield practice. But if I were the manager and I had a coach who couldn't hit a fungo bat, what have I got? What have I got here?
I
don't understand why the fungo bat works. Why does that stupid looking bat work better to hit balls to the outfield than a regular bat?
Beats the piss out of me, but it does.
It does.
I mean, you see guys take batting practice.
Right.
They don't let you into the park to see it anymore. You see the pitchers go out, and then on the first day of every series, you'll see PFP, pitchers fielding practice. And they used to have pitchers batting practice. They don't have to do that anymore. But when you go to a National League park, like remember, I think the last pitchers batting practice I saw was actually at in San Francisco. What are they calling it this week?
Stinky Park.
Stinky Park. Where they, because at that time the pitchers had a hit in the National League.
Now they don't even have to pitch. I'm following the Giants closely. First the hitting, now the pitching. What was that all about? Why even ask for professional level performances if you're not going to use them?
Oh, Mikey, it's early yet.
Oh, it's early.
It's early yet.
Either we win 10-3 or we lose 6-0. I can't figure it out.
Well, we kind of got the same thing going with the Mariners. As a matter of fact, the Mariners and the Giants seem to mirror each other in many ways. They got pitching, but
It's spotty.
it shows up and it doesn't show up.
Yeah.
The Mariners again really hurt this year by Robbie Ray. A guy, he was the Cy Young Award winner 2 years ago. And so they signed him, and it was considered a big coup, a big steal, a big thing. Everybody was trying to sign him, the Yankees, this, that, but the Mariners got him. And he sucked last year. And this year he's out for the season.
Yeah. How about that? Bad to worse.
Yeah. I mean, well, it could be worse. He could be losing games.
Yeah.
At least he's not losing games, but he's got a chunk of money. So
well, then he can afford to do some great rehab.
Oh yeah, no, he can have Jan Shelby come down and work him out. I mean,
let's not get carried away here.
That's the kind of money we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're talking about money. But it, as you look at it, the Mariners find themselves once again in the same position that they, in many ways, they were last year. They have pitching. They have good pitching. They have, they call up some guy and he, pitches great. Emergency starter, and he goes, 8 innings, 9 innings, 7 innings, 8 innings. But they're leaving a gazillion runners in scoring position.
Mm.
They've got Julio, who's a great hitter, but they don't have a lot in the way of offense. And the guys that they have are a bunch, again, of punch and Judy hitters.
Well, talk about offense. The Giants and the Padres went down to Mexico City for a 2-game series.
I saw that.
The first game was 16-12, 16-11, with home runs every 5 seconds. The first home run hadn't hit the stands yet, and there was another home run coming after it.
You think they juiced the ball?
Well, Mexico City is at a mile high, if not higher. And
that's what I was doing. I was pointing up, saying
the ball carries quite well at that altitude. And the Giants and the Padres were in the mood. And that's something that the Giants are good at. They hit 5-6 home runs in the game, then nothing. Then 3 home runs in the game, then nothing. Every once in a while, they put together 4 wins in a row, and it's all based on their power. So I'm looking forward to hit the damn ball, or I'll find someone who will. That's my motto.
Well, I think that's something that the Giants are going to have to figure out, because the Padres,
Padres have power.
They have power, they have pitching, and they have Bob Melvin.
Yeah, they have some star quality.
And here's a guy that I don't think gets the credit he deserves as a manager. Here's a guy that took the A's to the playoffs more times, maybe more times than Tony La Russa did.
He marshaled their talent in a very professional way.
With not a lot.
Because they don't have, that's the A's way. We're going to do it, but we're just, if we win, it'll be not by much.
Yeah. By the way, as early returns come in from Citi Field in New York, the Atlanta Braves are beating the New York Mets 6-1 in the second inning.
So batting practice is, they're going to let the public see it after all.
They're playing a doubleheader today because of they got rained out yesterday.
So it's no fun to be down 6-1 in that steamy heat. It's almost summertime heat, and the grass is still wet from the rainstorm.
Actually, yeah, but actually, it's funny because it's probably not too. I don't think it's too warm in New York yet, but they haven't had a lot of. They've had a lot of rain there over the past. I mean, I saw a thing yesterday. The Long Island Expressway was flooded. People were trapped in their cars. So yeah, it's a mess.
It's
But
59 degrees and windy in Manhattan at this hour.
yeah, so drop 5 degrees for Flushing.
Cloudy and New Yorkish.
Yeah, it's cloudy and it's a kind of a spring day, a wet April showers in May day. But the Mariners, they went up to Toronto. Yesterday they had a couple of guys that did what they needed to do because you're gonna have to get you're gonna have to get some power, something out of some of these guys that you don't expect it. The big guy that I like is the Big Dumper.
The Big Dumper?
Have you heard of the Big Dumper?
No, please tell me more about him. I like this already.
Cal Raleigh is the catcher. He's the Big Dumper. So
how big is he?
10-8 yesterday in 10 innings. And it was a crappy start. It rounded out a month that the Mariners really needed to, kind of establish themselves. And they had, as a matter of fact, they wind up the month with their star injured. Julio Rodriguez kept out of the lineup. He's got something going on.
Is it a muscle strain or what is it?
You know what? I don't know exactly what it is. I think it might be a knee issue, but
that sounds like more than 10 days.
Yeah, so it'll be. But they brought in back tightness. That's right. So
that's better than a knee.
Yeah, better than a knee. He had it last year down the stretch. He had problems.
Well, you got to do what Kayvon Looney does: yoga before the game.
I suggested for everybody, chocolate and vanilla.
Mix them together, swirl them, keep it cold. You can melt it a little bit. I like it soft. Sprinkles to your heart desire. Blueberries if you like them.
Yeah, I'm a blueberry on yogurt kind of guy. But I think some of those. I'm just looking at what were they wearing here? Oh yeah, Taylor Trammell hit a 454-foot home run.
It's funny, Vinny. You have Mikey and Vinny take on the world behind you, and right next to your face it just says WOR.
If they would have been smart, they would have hired us instead of Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, that was an error in judgment.
Yeah, that was something that they should have taken care of. All right, enough about baseball. What's Hollywood going to look like tomorrow?
Well, the last time they went on a strike of this magnitude, and I assume they're going to continue it, they were out 100 days.
Right. We're talking about the Writers Guild of America planning on, if they don't get the concessions they want from the studios, are going to go out on strike as they did.
I think there's going to be trouble
years ago.
You know how the studios hate to talk about real money?
Yeah.
How they really make the money and how much of it there is and where they put it and where it came from. Traditionally, you can't get a straight answer in Hollywood about money. How much did your movie take to make? What did you spend? Well,
and
so how much did you make? Those figures aren't in. It'll take a while to figure it out. They're always the last figures we get, and we're still computing and we're still crunching the numbers.
And you know how tough it is to get an accountant these days. So the figures are all in a pile over there.
In this instance, though, Vinny, I think they're telling the truth. They don't know how much money there is in streaming because they've just begun to take it seriously in the last couple of years.
Right.
What they do know is they don't intend to pay anybody to make it any more than they are right now. There's a fluid situation on how long you have to be employed, what kind of ceiling there is in your your residuals, how much you make when you write for it, how much you make when you're writing and producing and show running, and all the different elements that are there. It's a jumble right now because of streaming. And the jumble has favored the owners of the property,
As it usually does.
like it always does. And the people who create the goods, who actually write the episodes, who run the individual shows, it's a fluid situation, and they're going to have to they're trying to put a new price on it. And it's going to be a rough set of negotiations, I bet. I think they could be out for longer than 100 days. So get ready for the reruns and all the shows on streaming that you never saw before, you'll be seeing again. And that will only serve to reinforce the writer's position, I think, that you need new content because the people are there, they will consume it. There is money in it, and there's long-term benefit to owning that property.
Right. And there is so much, the last time they went out on strike, there was none of this streaming stuff. There was
No.
nothing. It was HBO, it was cable that they were upset about. And I'll never forgive the studios or the writers, millionaires fighting millionaires. And it cost me 1 year of Darlene Love singing Christmas, Baby, Please Come Home, because Letterman was closed down and it was Christmas. And so they didn't, I had the fervent hope that they would have set the band up outside the studio, outside the Ed Sullivan Theater.
No, they
and
never
just
do
get
it.
it out on the sidewalk. But
The Musicians Union says we're walking in solidarity with AFTRA, SAG, and IBET and the IATSE. We're all going, and the WGA is going with us. Okay.
And I guess, and so we'll see what happens. I mean, the first people that are going to be affected will be, Kimmel and Colbert and the other Jimmy there, Fallon,
Right.
and the Daily Show and those different shows. Those will be the first shows that
Disappear.
disappear because they generate, Saturday Night Live will disappear because you have to have, those are high churn. I mean, those, they got a writer's room that's working every day. And what they wrote last week doesn't, and Jimmy Kimmel, as good as he is, and as much as I like him, isn't smart enough to stand out there for, 60 minutes and riff.
The funny thing is, their shows remind me a lot about radio, where when the show's over, you just throw it away. There's nothing to say. Maybe you can save a bit of sound from the day before, but for the most part, you got to start all over again. Right now, what are we doing in the 6 o'clock hour? That's the first thing I would say. What holes do we have to fill? Because they have to be filled like they were filled yesterday, and that means that those people are working hard because they're pulling content out of headlines. They're pulling content out of events. They're taking the news and the events of the day and twisting them around to their own purpose for humorous effect. It's not easy, especially if the events of the day are not particularly funny. I was looking at the headlines today: jailbreak, manhunt, and shootings in the Mojave. Those are like headlines from the 1930s. Desperate characters in a desperate nation on a jailbreak as a result of a manhunt with shootings in the desert. It's just quite remarkable who we are as a nation.
Yeah, I'm so saddened by that story in Texas of the guy who
shooting his gun.
I don't even know how you describe somebody. I hate to even describe him as a guy, but some just absolute asshole is shooting his gun in his front yard, and the people in the house across the street got kids, and one of them goes over and says, "Hey, could you, we're trying to put the kid to bed. Could you stop shooting the gun?"
Yeah.
And so he came in and put the kid to bed and the rest of the family.
Yeah. Alcohol was involved.
Yeah, I'll call.
I never lived in
I
it
saw a headline that this guy was deported a couple of times,
4 times,
and
but he liked Texas.
yeah, and it's just, I just hope, Michael, that there's a special place in hell for these kind of people.
You think he's dead? Is that why they can't find him?
You know what? I don't know, Michael. A guy like that, he doesn't seem to be that guy. You know, some of these guys, you figure they're going to kill themselves. They know it's over. They know they're going to jail for life, or they're going to get the electric chair. They put one in their head, and that's it. You know, like that kid in Denver a couple of months ago that shot the people at the school. He went into the woods, killed himself. The Brian Laundrie guy who killed that beautiful girl.
Yes.
You know, he knew that he knew that they were going to figure it out and that they were going to get him. So his only thing was to just go into the woods and put one in your head. This guy, and again, I don't know anything else than anybody else, but it just doesn't seem. This guy seems to have an ego.
You
This
know,
guy,
they have like 4 or 5 pictures of him taken in different situations, and he has the same expression on his face in every picture.
yeah.
And you just after 2 or 3, that's one thing, but the same expression in all of them, you just go, wait a minute, what do we got here?
Now, did you see what happened yesterday with the FBI? That they put the wrong picture out?
Yes.
Did you hear about that? That some guy, they took up, they mixed the guy's last name up or something, and they got this guy who just got his driver's license in Houston and put
God.
his picture on the thing, and it looked enough like the other pictures. And the guy's daughter was on last night saying, "Holy crap, man! You can't believe what's going on here. People are coming to the door with guns, looking to kill this freaking guy."
Woo. The
You know,
FBI sincerely apologizes for any mistake we may have made.
yeah. So I'm sure there'll be a lawsuit there. And listen, I'm not going to blame the FBI. People make mistakes. I mean,
That's a
it's
doozy.
unfortunate, but people make mistakes. You would think somebody would be checking on that a little bit more, but who knows? But I hope they catch this guy. I hope they catch him alive, and I hope they torture the living shit out of him. I don't know. I just, anybody who shoots a kid, anybody who shoots an 8-year-old kid,
Who was apparently running to his mother, or she was running to him.
yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't deserve. I mean, there's no place. There's no lane of traffic for you out on Aurora Avenue. There's no place in line for you. There's not even a prison cell for you. There's no prison cell. There's no justification you can come to me and say that would make me say, well, yeah, maybe you got a point. You had to kill that 8-year-old.
And I don't want to hear that you're sorry, that it was all a terrible mistake.
I don't want to hear you sorry. I don't want to hear. The only thing I want to hear is your body burning in hell. That's all I want to hear. There's no justice for that. There's no reason that you can give me. I went crazy. All right, well, then you don't belong in society anymore because you could do it again. Boom. See you later. What? Oh, you snapped? Well, good. You're not going to snap again.
No,
You
that
get
was
one
it.
chance to snap.
That was a snap that we can't endorse. I'm sorry. That was more than a snap. I've seen snaps. I've seen somebody snap.
Yeah.
That was different.
I've snapped. I didn't go pick up a gun and start shooting kids.
I think the fact that he escaped, knowing he was in hot water, puts this into a dark judgment of his state of mind. He knew he'd done something terrible, and he had to avoid the police, and he had to avoid detection, and he's either hiding or dead. I don't know which.
Well, I hope that it's dead. I hope that he did. Although, again, I hope that he's dead because he was sitting in the woods somewhere and some bear looked at him and said, "Boy, there's a good piece of meat."
That would be interesting. Death by
And
bear.
slowly ripped him apart, starting at the toes and working his way up. So he would,
Bears are pretty efficient eaters. They don't
yeah,
leave a lot behind.
yeah. There's just bones and that's it. They suck out whatever they want, man. It's and I hate to be like that. I hate to be one of those.
But he crossed over the line. I don't know what the line is.
Yeah, there's a line. You know, it always reminds me of that that one redeeming moment in the movie Scarface, where Tony Montana goes to New York, and they're going to kill the. They want to kill. I think he's a professor or he's some guy that's, exposing the cartels. And he gets into his Peugeot. He's driving a Peugeot, and they got the bomb under there, and they're going to blow the car up. And all of a sudden, the car turns around. He picks the kid up to take her to school. And the guy that was sent from South America, the assassin, that Tony is, driving around, he's saying, you can't do it.
No,
you can't.
That's not how we do it.
Yeah, it's not how we do it. You can't. And he said, I'm going to do it, boom. And so Tony just pulls out his fucking boom, just blows him away. And the guy gets away. And of course, everybody gets mad at Tony because they don't give a fuck. A damn. And it's that one. It's so big because it's such a horrible movie. But yet there's that one it's that one redeeming moment. This guy is killed everybody and made everybody's life miserable, except for the one guy who got him killed. Who in essence got him killed because by not completing the assignment, this guy went on to expose the cartel and all of that.
Well, remember, our lesson here is never sample the goods. Keep your nose out of the product.
Well, and actually, when that movie came out, when I saw that movie, I kind of had an exception to that because, in the neighborhood I came from was the cocaine capital. And I knew Colombians that had families wiped out, that had their families wiped out, kids. I mean, they'd shoot the freaking dolls.
Yeah.
In the house. They'd just walk in shooting. They don't care who's there. And there were several. I mean, in 78, 79, there were several shootings in Jackson Heights and Corona where they wiped out entire families.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the Colombians and the Russians showed the mafia how to be evil.
Well, yeah, because there was always a rule with the Italians that you didn't shoot kids, you didn't involve somebody's family. You got the guy, you took him out to wherever you were going to take him, and you did him, and that was it. And the Russians, the Brighton Beach Boys, and then the Colombians. Really was the Colombians first, because the Russians really didn't take hold until the 90s, or the 80s, actually, I should say. They didn't care.
No,
they'd slaughter a whole family.
Yeah,
they didn't care. There was a couple of times I remember in Jackson Heights where there were, murders where whole families were killed in a car. Just drive by, shot up with Uzis. 3 kids in the back seat. What kind of person does that?
It became a signature to take out the whole family. It was not just a one-time deal. It was part of the operation that was different from the Italian ideal leave the wife, leave the kids, do this. We're not animals.
Right.
This is business, not personal.
Right. We're not animals. Yeah, I hope they find. I hope they find this guy, and I hope that they find him mauled by just die horribly, horribly dead. In a way that that his eyes are still looking up while the rest of him has been eaten by a bear. Let me go to a lighter note.
Yes.
How about a little lighter note?
What do you got?
So I got a note from my friend yesterday, and they are opening in. Let me just pull this up real quick because I want to get this right. It is going to open August. Let's see. Where are you here? Sometime this summer, they will open the Borscht Belt Museum.
In what town?
In is it Monticello or no? It's not Monticello. It's in Ellensburg, New York. Ellensville. Ellensburg is here in Washington. Ellensville, where I used to go when my father tried to get me into hunting. That's where we used to go hunting in Ellensville. But we also used to go up there. And
who's in the museum? Henny Youngman?
Well, I would have to think, and I don't have the whole dossier on it. For some reason, the page isn't opening. Somebody did send me a podcast called Borscht Belt Memories with Cousin Brucey.
Whew.
So I would have to think that. So it's a Borscht Belt museum and a Borscht Belt. I guess they're going to have a Borscht Belt Hall of Fame. You would have to think that. Let's run down a quick list that I can think. Woody Allen, Corbett Monica, Morty Gunty, Henny Youngman.
Jackie Mason.
Who?
Jackie Mason.
Jackie Mason, of course. Jackie Leonard.
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld.
Sandler and Young.
You just think of all of these different, and the people who owned the various, the Grossingers and all of those different places. There was probably 10 of those hotels up there. That was such a part of Jewish culture in the 50s and the 60s. There's one sticking in my head. I can't, and it was just so many different great stories that you've heard, and this guy is working to keep that alive because they're all gone.
What was the actor's name? Fever Fivish? What was his name?
Oh, Fievel
Fivish.
Fievel Fivish, I think. Yeah. But what show was he on? He was on a. He was
on a television show.
Yeah, he was on a TV show later. And also Sandy Becker, Toady Fields.
Yes.
Just thinking of some more. All of those guys. Chuck McCann. They all went up there and worked.
Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers. I mean, we can come up with a list of just an incredible amount. And I know they have the Comedy Museum in Jamestown, the American Museum of Comedy, but this is now something different, and this pays tribute. Will pay tribute to, and I really, I'm very interested in it. I'm very interested in going up there because although I didn't go to those places per se, I still went up there. I still knew a ton of people that went up there. I went to a summer camp up there. I didn't go to Grossinger's, but I went to a Camp Green Hollow that was in Hunter, New York, outside of Hunter, which was up in that area.
Did you drive the camp guards crazy?
Oh, I drove the camp guards crazy, and I drove this one counselor, Carol Hardbrod.
You drove her to tears.
Oh my God, did I have a crush? And I was a wacky ass little kid, man. And I had a crush on her. that didn't quit.
It was a professional crush.
It may have actually been my first professional crush.
An industrial crush.
Don't know where she is today. Never tried to Google or anything like that. But she made my heart go pitter patter, boy. And it was the camp was owned by a former Major League Baseball player, believe it or not, Tony DePhillips, who
I think I
played
remember that name.
I think 3 games in the major leagues.
Tony, you made it to the show. Goodbye.
And somehow I read in the Long Island Press that this guy was opening up a camp, and it was a baseball camp, and I wanted to go. So my father said, "All right, we'll send you to camp for a couple of weeks." And I was not a camp guy. You may not realize that now, but I was not a camp guy.
I was not a camp guy. The whole idea of being the Boy Scout and standing at attention and having my bunk inspected and all that. Please.
I was even worse. I went to Boy Scout camp too 1 year. 1 year I went 2 weeks to 2 weeks to Camp Green Hollow and 2 weeks to Boy Scout camp. And let me tell you, one experience was worse than the other.
I remember swimming. They want you to swim in the lake. This is not just a casual lake. This lake is melted snow. I don't want to swim in that lake. I don't want to get in that lake. I don't want to, and I don't care what paramilitary swimming looks like. No, not interested. You stand in line.
In Boy Scout camp, they made you do the mile swim.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going a mile without some kind of propulsion.
I will gladly go the mile that you're speaking of, but where's my boat? Where's my propeller?
Yeah, I mean, you put me in a boat, you give me a motor. I don't even want one of those freaking sailboats. You can hang on to them catamarans. I don't care about that. You give me a boat, you give me a motor, you put me in it.
I'll give you a mile.
And I'll give you a mile easy. I'll give you a couple of miles. I don't care. But as far as
swimming from the dock out to that thing no. What's the point of that? No, you don't see any animals who live here swimming in that lake, do you?
And listen, I was a chunky kid. I could have floated a mile, but they didn't want that either. No. I said, listen, I'll get in. I'll just lay out. I'll paddle a little bit. And, you just hang out until I get there. And they didn't want that either.
No.
I gave them several alternatives.
And yet they wanted it their way.
And I was, even at a young age like that, I was never one of those people who said, all right, I'll do it your way.
Yeah.
Had a great scoutmaster. And then Mr. Tremaine, wonderful guy, loved George Burns. He had a George Burns sense of humor. Scared the living crap out of me one night. But first time I fell for the hook joke. And then 2 days after the mile swim, they tell everybody, all right, get your gear. We're going for a 20-mile hike.
You got to leave early on a 20-mile hike, or else you'll be hiking in the dark.
And I said, and of course, this endeared me to everybody. I said, we're going on a 20-mile hike. The name of the freaking camp is 10 Mile River.
We're going to do 2 laps. It'll be 20 miles. Don't you fret.
And I made, and I had a lot of trouble walking when I was a kid. I have a lot of trouble walking now, but even when I was a kid, I had trouble walking.
Did they make you go 20 miles?
I went to 20 miles.
Wow.
I made 20 freaking miles. I think I got I think I may have gotten a ride for about a mile just before lunch.
And then you got your second wind.
And then after we stopped for lunch. And then the funniest thing about it is that they, when you go on the hike, they bring you your food. Instead of having to go into the dining hall, they put it in heater stacks. Well, the heater stacks weren't cleaned properly.
Oh, dear.
And you know what happens when heater stacks are not cleaned properly?
The bears get into it.
Oh, my God. So, like at 19 miles, everybody's got the craps. Everybody's running back to the camp. And all night you hear, oh! you couldn't get a latrine. You had to make a reservation.
The fun things we get to do at camp, yeah. The 20-mile hike that was cut short by stomach problems.
Well, no, it didn't. I mean, we ran the last mile. You didn't have a choice.
You were out there now.
You could just jump into the woods and start crapping your brains out there. And I guess you figured, well, 6 to 5, a half a dozen of the other.
The woods were a mess that day.
Man, I remember people just, oh my God, for 2 days. The place, reeked. It was horrible. They'd have the camp doctor come down. They're giving us Pepto-Bismol. They're giving us fluids. It was ridiculous. Nowadays, we all would have been millionaires. We would have sued the camp for, those days.
Dear Joey DePhillips, you were being enjoined in an action.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I wasn't your camp guy. I didn't get along at camp too well.
You saw the weakness of the system from the inside. It was just
I saw the weakness of the system, and it was the last year I went to camp. There was this little party going on about 75 miles north of New York City.
That would be Woodstock.
And that right there ended any idea of me ever going to camp again.
That was the end of your scouting days.
That was pretty much the end of scouting days. That was the end of, I think I might have stayed in the scouts a little bit longer, but I didn't go to camp again. I think I went on a couple of overnighters because I did like camping. I liked camping. I just didn't like camp. I didn't like that organized, shut the
We're in the woods. Why do we have to get up early?
Yeah, I thought we came up here to relax. Yeah. If I would have wanted to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, I would have went to summer school. So, but after Woodstock,
that's
after the summer of love in Woodstock, Boy Scouts lost its,
Boy Scouts did not have a counteroffer to the Summer of Love.
No,
it's just a fact.
No, they didn't. They had some good things. I mean, there was some really good things about it. I learned some really good lessons there.
I wish I learned my knots better.
Yeah, learned how to get along with people, learned how to tie knots, learned how to tie up the Scoutmaster. But
he should have seen it coming, but he didn't.
Mr. T, you can't teach people to tie knots like that and not expect
them to use them.
That people are gonna use things like that against you. He was a great guy, though, Mr. Tremaine. He was a great man. I mean, I enjoyed this guy so much.
Where was your camp? In the Catskills?
It was in 10 Mile River, so I think it was to a little more straight up. The Catskills, you go up, the Thruway, and then you go to 17 and you go east. So you're northwest of New York City. 10 Mile River was straight up the Thruway between Albany and New York City, about halfway between. And I believe it was on the east side of the Hudson, where the Catskills are on the west side of the Hudson. This was in the Adirondacks.
Isn't the Catskills where Rip Van Winkle's story takes place?
When we were kids, there used to be a Rip Van Winkle land. Like one of those cheesy amusement parks?
It wasn't a place to go and take a nap, I take it.
No. It was a place where kids screamed, wet their pants, and cried.
The great trifecta.
Yeah. And they gave you, and when you pulled into the parking lot, they put a bumper sticker on your car.
With wire?
With wire.
Yeah.
Remember those?
I do remember those.
Maybe you could tell somebody was on vacation because they had like 8 bumper stickers on the back of their car, but they weren't stickers. They were put on with wire.
So you could, the one that I used to see was the mystery spot of Humboldt County.
Yeah. No, Trees of Mystery. Mystery spots in Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. Trees of
Mystery was the one, because when I first got to California, before I lived there, I drove up.
You thought you'd solve the mystery of the trees.
Yeah, I drove up to the Trees of Mystery. We drove up 101 all the way to Seattle or to Oregon, and then up and pulled into Trees of Mystery. And when I came out, there was one of those things on the bumper of my car.
Tradition.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they used to get them for everything. I remember, Fort Ticonderoga was a popular one. Palisades Park used to do them.
Wow.
At one time, when you parked in their parking lot, you got Palisades Park.
Andy Warhol was born here. You should have those tied to them with a Brillo in the corner. I would love that.
Oh my God! Yeah, I mean, you can't do those anymore. People sue you for you touched my car. It's like the old things that the dealers used to put on their cars.
Right. The sticker.
The sticker that said, "Oh yeah," well now it's a license plate thing. So if you want to take it off, because somebody sued a dealer because they put it on their paint, they had to get their whole paint thing. And the guy had to give the guy the money back for the car.
And you didn't ask me to put that damn thing on there. I don't want it on there.
You didn't ask me to put a sign that said Ellis Brooks on that car.
No. And I didn't get the Chevrolet at your place anyway, so let's get it off.
Exactly.
I got it at a Rat-a-tat-tat Pontiac.
Yeah, exactly.
Don Sherwood had a sponsor named Arata Pontiac. They were
down at Burlingame, right?
Been around a long time. And Don Sherwood always called it Arata Tat Pontiac. And he's brought to you by a rat-a-tat-tat Pontiac, and it just stuck. I can't get it out of my head. Sherwood may have been that was on his television show called Sherwood As Is, and the show was never better titled because you never know what you were going to get. Sherwood As He Is at this moment. This is what we got. Show's on, Donnie Babe.
Amazing, absolutely amazing, man. There's so many things that are, that's the one thing great about this show, Michael. We were talking before about Jimmy Kimmel and writers and all of that stuff. If they really get stuck and they really want to put a show on, all they got to do is fly us to Hollywood. Well, you're there already, but fly me down to Hollywood, sit me, you, and Kimmel at his desk, and we can riff for hours. And I'll bet you it'll be just as entertaining as anything else they put on.
I think you probably have the kernel of a wonderful idea there. That's why I can't believe Cairo doesn't want to rescue the doldrums that they're in by doing information and entertainment. Let me tell you something. It reflects the power and the variety to be found in the city of Seattle better than any other format. and it renews itself daily.
You and I, and I've come to this realization, and I think what's going to happen with us, Mikey, is we're going to get hired by. We're gonna wind up getting hired for no money.
Oh, that hired? Is that
Yeah,
what they call that?
for very little money at like a station in Bellingham or something like that. A small town station. They'll let us do what we want, just make it fun in the morning. And that's what'll happen to us because radio right now is in such a state of disarray.
It's so pathetic though. It's so weak and pathetic, and it can't seem to rescue itself.
And nobody wants to do anything about it. They'll just sit there and watch it.
I don't think they know what to do. I think what they've got in mind is traffic on the fives. And back to you, Jim. Do you have any ideas about what to build around our traffic reports?
Except that you don't need traffic.
In fact,
unless you have
that's the first thing that I would get rid of.
Unless you have a personality delivering traffic.
Not every 5 minutes.
If you have, and this is, I was up for the job at Kairos, the traffic reporter, a year ago, and I think I would have made a great traffic reporter because I would have brought stuff to the table. It would have been just traffic. You would have listened to Vinnie for the traffic, but you would have got a lot more out of the deal.
Sure, you would have.
There would have been other stuff going on. As a matter of fact, the traffic might have even been the last thing because everybody's got their phone punched to their dashboard and everybody knows where the traffic is. Like you once said, Michael, if you don't know where the traffic is, if you live in Seattle, you're an idiot. Yeah. Or something to that effect. How the hell could you not know where the traffic is in Seattle?
It was there yesterday and it'll be there tomorrow.
I laugh when I see these stations that run ads saying, oh, yeah, we'll get you around the traffic. How the hell are you going to get me around the traffic? Are you going to send a drone or a helicopter? How are you going to get me around the traffic? There's 4 roads that go this way, 3 roads that go this way. The only other way I'm going through traffic, not going to go through traffic, is if I have an all-wheel drive that goes through the woods.
In Spopakia, they only have one traffic reporter, and that's a part-time position. Well, and they only have one major road, and that's why they're putting in the frontage road. Well, you say there's 2 roads. But it's not complete.
66 and 66A. And they're developing
the north-south. It's long overdue.
North-south. We don't know what it's going to be called yet. If it's even right now, it's just north-south.
Well, half of 66 is 33. It could be 33.
Except the little problem they're coming up with now is it's north-south is fine if you're in the north and you want to go south. But what happens when you are finished going south and you want to go north? You can't get on the north-south.
Well, they're working on that. The same people who are going to build the lake are working on the north-south 33. And the fascinating thing about traffic in Spopakia is you'd think that there would be a lot of it because everybody would have to be on the same road.
Right.
But they have traffic reports, and you have an odd, even day like they used to do with traffic, with gas consumption. It was an odd day, you got gas. If it was an even day, you would get gas. Same thing with traffic in Spopakia. It's an odd, even day. You have to stay off the freeway. You have to take 66A. Well, everybody with an even license plate gets 66 for the day. Tomorrow it's your turn.
Tomorrow you turn it around. And then one day a week they open the gas stations, but they really don't tell you. They really don't tell you what day that is.
It could be Thursday, but it could be Friday.
We don't know what day it is. Could be Thursday, could be Friday, could be Sunday, and we'll fool you all because driving is illegal in Spopakia on Sunday.
On all roads?
All roads.
Well, how does the preacher man get to work?
Walks.
That doesn't sound right. Preacher men don't walk. They also don't help out when there's digging to be done or moving of refrigerators or or big organs.
Well,
haven't get them to do that.
maybe Dusty Springfield goes in there and talks to the son of the preacher man.
He'll work. He's
He'll
got
work.
nothing to do. But his old man is useless. Well, except in the preaching, of course.
Well, he's the only man that could ever move her, the son of a preacher man. See that? We started with Winchester Cathedral.
And we end with son of a preacher
And we
man.
end up with Dusty Springfield.
And I am so sorry that you had to witness that, my dear. Vinnie, shall we do it on Wednesday?
Who needs writers? Well, we're only kidding, Ken Levine. We're only kidding. We all need writers. Yes, let's do it again on Wednesday if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise.
And you bring the Manischewitz?
Yeah, I'll bring the Manischewitz, baby, because you can't get along without peace, love, and Manischewitz, baby.
It's quite a wine. See you, Vin.
All right, see you, Mikey. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll catch up with you on Wednesday morning at 10:10, right here on the Mikey and Vinnie Broadcasting Affair.
Shtick.